Today, I'm going to share with you the top 5 building blocks of creating an effective evangelization and communication strategy so that you can go back to your nonprofit or diocese and start building some momentum. Hey, I'm Pat Padley, a marketing leader and strategist with the heart for brands on mission. I help ministries, dioceses, nonprofits tell their story and maximize their potential. So have you ever worked at a ministry and felt like, you're not making a whole lot of progress? You've been maybe pushing and still it feels like, you're not quite in sync internally, or evangelization and outreach is just sort of this one department's job, and your marketing communication it's just not really landing. Today, I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips for building a ministry strategy. So let's get into it. The first is, I would say, define the win. What I mean by this is, often we think, we just don't have enough resources. We just don't have enough people, or our budgets are small. And that can be true, a lack of resources. That's a real thing. But often the biggest problem is actually a lack of focus or an understanding of clarity. Whether that's, people so focused on, the tools or the programs versus looking at a holistic strategy, or actually lacking the clarity on what the priorities are. If you're working for a diocese, you often, like your bishop probably has priorities, whether it be marriage and family or pro-life or, evangelization and outreach or youth and young adult. Those priorities can be tracked against a specific ministry strategy. And you can set your programs and your communication and your marketing all geared towards those things. I like to say that strategy is about making choices. And so understanding and having clarity and having the clear priorities of where you're trying to go then allows you to actually move the ball down the field towards that goal. Tip 2 is to narrow your focus. Now, you're probably asking yourself, like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I hear all the time that people say, oh, well, isn't our goal to, Matthew 28, verse 19, go make disciples of all nations. Like, that's why we exist. That's why the church exists. That's why my nonprofit exists, is to spread the gospel. And that's probably true to some extent. And that is the church's job. But the reality is you do have a limited time. You have a limited effort or limited budget. And so trying to be everything to everyone, saying that like all of our programs meet everyone's needs. It's like parishes and churches do this all the time. You listen to a pulpit announcement and they list every program, and half the time, like as a young dad, like, hey, I'm sorry, but the widow ministry, which might be amazing, isn't valuable to me as a young dad. And so you have to really think about, like, who are you trying to reach right now? What are your key goals? If you have the clarity in that first step, now you can think about who we're trying to reach. So, if you're trying to stoke the flames of your on fire disciples, what you're going to go do is going to be completely different than if you're trying to go out to the peripheries and you're trying to reach a broader audience or a broader awareness. The kinds of content you're going to post or the kinds of ministry programs you're going to have are going to be completely different. It's by actually narrowing your focus that you can really make an impact. The next strategy is, I would say, more of a posture than it is necessarily like a specific communication or ministry strategy, but it's to collaborate and not compete internally. I was working with a client for an advent campaign, a big diocese, and they had all this great stuff they were doing for outreach, and they wanted to send an email. And the problem was that their email database was mainly run by the development team. And the development folks were like holding so tightly to this email the email list because they were so concerned that if somebody were to send an email, it could completely disrupt their massive amounts of fundraising that they did with this list. Often we're working in silos at an organization, and we need to especially share insight and data between departments. In that example, it was actually that because they sent an email focused on evangelization and showing all the programs and effort that they were doing for Advent, that they actually had a better job of raising money because the folks on their list not only were asked for money, but they also saw what their money was going to go do. So silos exist, and we need to do our best to break those areas down when we can. I get that it's a struggle, but if we have a posture of collaboration versus competing with one another, we might even have different goals, but we can actually accomplish multiple goals at once. So I hope you found this helpful so far. If you have, share it with a friend. But also don't forget to stick around for the whole video. I've got a bonus tip that I'll actually share with you about how to build your overall ministry experience. The next tip is knowing when to bring in outside help. Many dioceses or nonprofits don't necessarily want to pay for strategists or outside consultants. And I get that. But let's talk about what you actually get when you hire a great consultant. Strategic advisors do more than just, build a campaign for you. They provide you industry insights. They might give you quick wins on how to launch something quickly while you're still building the foundation of the overall ministry. They also bring in context from other clients. Hey, I saw this at another nonprofit that's in your space, and this thing didn't really resonate with their audience, so maybe we should pivot this way. Outside consultants can actually know how to help you align your internal resources better so that you're actually being really good stewards of your budget and your time. Successful nonprofits or ministries use outside help. So, think about it like a doctor doesn't perform surgery on themselves, or a dentist doesn't pull their own teeth. Experts in many fields go get advice from outside consultants, ones they respect. And that's true in this world as well. Good outside consultants are also going to help you keep your emotions in check. Let's say you have a meeting with your CEO or your executive director or your bishop, and all of a sudden, you're kind of just reeling like, wow, is our strategy working? Like sometimes it can feel like you're turning the Titanic of your, the organization. Having a third party to talk to, either to give you affirmation or in those moments to actually kind of kick you in the butt and say, yeah, you need to like, he's right, or she's right. Like you got to like move on this thing, move on this opportunity. It's helpful to have that third party to be vulnerable with, to have a trusted voice at the table. And so that's why outside consultants are really helpful. The last tip is think steps, not programs. Now this phrase actually comes from a book called The 7 Practices of Effective Ministry by Andy Stanley. And the thing here is, your ministry strategy should actually take people somewhere, not just simply fill up their time. So when we're thinking steps, not programs, it's not another Bible study. It's actually by pulling up from the trees and going back up to the forest that you start to look holistically and say, man, what's the journey we're actually trying to take people on? Many churches just pack a calendar full of activities and events and programs and initiatives or meetings, but when they actually stop to take a look around, a good chunk of them aren't actually driving their strategy forward. So a couple questions to maybe just ask yourself is, where do we want our people to go? And where do we want people to be eventually? Is this program or this initiative actually designed to take them there? And it's by looking at that and maybe putting together, say, like a ministry funnel of where exactly are we taking people, that you can thoughtfully say yes to the right things and say no to the things that aren't producing fruit. Okay, I promised you a bonus tip, and here it is. First, I want to start off with a quote from Seth Godin. Marketing is everything. It's how you answer the phone, the prices you charge, what you do for your employees, your ability to exceed expectations, and much more. The marketer's job in the new normal is to make the organization work for its customers. Now, in ministry and in churches, we don't necessarily have customers. So let me do a little translation here. What he's talking about is the concept of a brand promise. A brand promise is what people can expect from your nonprofit or your ministry, and that it's kept every time and that it's true. So the example here I would say is Disney. Disney promises magical experiences. If you've ever been to Disney World, you get the little magical wristbands, you can scan it, you almost never see any garbage. They've got this like special tunnel system to keep the garbage away. You never even see somebody sweeping up garbage unless they're pretending to be like a Mary Poppins sweeper or something. They're all about like not breaking the fourth wall. They're all about making sure that you have a great magical experience at the parks. And this is where actions speak louder than words. The details matter. So if you want the 5 tips above to work, you've actually got to integrate them all. And you've got to make sure that your ministry strategy is actually integrated into all aspects of your organization. So here's the tip. You need to constantly be casting a vision. Now, this is internally, you need to be constantly speaking about these things, telling your team, hey, this is our goal. This is who we're trying to reach. Don't forget, when you're thinking about your programs, when you're thinking about your events, when we're trying to build a donor campaign, like this is what we're trying to accomplish. You need to share that with your key stakeholders, your board members, your major donors, even your small donors. You need to constantly be sharing this vision so that everybody's always on the same page. It helps break down silos. It helps make sure that you're making progress on your goals and your strategy. And it's by doing this that you'll actually be able to keep your brand promise and keep that expectation of a holistic experience for your overall ministry. So now I want to hear from you. Post in the comments below, what you think. What did I miss? Do you agree or disagree? And I would say if you enjoyed this video, feel free to, subscribe, share it with your friends. There's also a link down below to join the email list, and I kind of send some monthly-ish newsletters to you so that you can get some insights and fresh thinking.